The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Let's listen as Lorraine Lapointe, coach, therapist, educator, speaker, and founder of Head Heart Synergy, brings together another enlightened guest to inspire and motivate us to move forward, achieve our dreams and desires, so that we experience midlife awakening.
And I'm your host, Lorraine Lapointe. Today we'll enjoy another candid conversation that reveals how to bring back a sense of balance and how to find forward focus. Today, take just a few moments to join us as we explore the possibilities and the perspectives that provide us with greater inner peace, power, passion, and purpose. Because that's what I call living at the edge of fulfillment in a midlife awakening.
Well, hello and welcome to all of our friends around the world. It's so great to have you here because in this episode of Edge of Fulfillment, we're calling it to turn your light on. And that's because it's also the name of a personal development book that you wish you'd had 10 years ago. Seriously. So I wonder, does it ever feel like time is slipping through your fingers? Have you ever noticed that the days seem to come and go, and despite the work that you've done, sometimes it just doesn't feel like enough? Have you ever felt that where you are is not where you're meant to be? And well, for me, the days used to feel like a pattern of, watching webinars, attending master classes, reading books, meeting with partners and clients, and sometimes ending up in a state of a little bit of frustration because I always thought I could cram some more in, could always do just a little bit extra. But on previous shows, we've talked about why some people play small and settle for less. And some people just play all out. And one thing that our guest and I know is that when you're living your purpose, you can know that you've landed in the right place, and that's important. And many are waking up to the truth. They're discovering who they are, why they exist on this planet at this time in history. And my guest calls this being ready to turn your light on. So today we're having a candid conversation about each of us is on our own purposeful journey. And many are finding ways to awaken the soul and live with more passion, more authenticity and creativity, and more joy in all areas of life. And by the way, for those I haven't met before, I'm Lorraine Lapointe, and you can think of me as a guide who shows compassionate small business owners and, women in the prime of their life, how to use gifts and strengths and talents to more effectively serve and to shift our thoughts, our feelings, and beliefs so that we feel more fulfilled and purposeful. Hence the edge of fulfillment, because research shows that when we understand our purpose, our perspective can change, and we can develop the mindset and the well-being practices to experience greater peace, power, passion, and purpose. So it's great to see you here today. And we invite you to engage and connect with us, because each week we broadcast in all kinds of places through all kinds of different social media platforms. And it's your opportunity to notice when something in the conversation, really resonates with you, and be sure to let us know what that is. Because right here, right now, we are building a fun, interactive, and engaging community of like-minded people. So go ahead and invite your friends and family to join us as we meet our guest right after the break here on the Edge of Fulfillment on the Head Heart Synergy Facebook fan page, or you might be on the Women for Women Network Radio, or you might be watching us from talk4tv.com. But wherever you are, We'll be right back.
Did you know video is the future on content? There are 3 good reasons why video is the future of content. Number 1, videos are often more engaging than simple pictures or music alone. Number 2, it's much easier to tell your story through video. Number 3, because we love to watch video, they go viral much faster. Hey, notice you're still watching right now. See how well it works. Next time we can play your video here instead. Ask me how. Shine online on Talk 4 TV and W4WN Radio.
Hey, are you looking for a brighter future? Wishing for greater calm, clarity, and confidence? What if you knew an inside job was the answer? Your mission: stop the inner burn, gain mental fitness so you get more out of life. Imagine in about 15 minutes a day for just 6 weeks. Come on, we'll show you how. Don't miss it. Just go to www.lorraine.gives/m-fitness and join us right now.
Hey, welcome back. And now it's my pleasure to tell you a little about our guest for this week. Deidre Sirianni is known as an activator. She's a guide to visionaries, leaders, and impact-driven entrepreneurs. And like me, she works with those who are ready to change the world in a big way and aren't willing to compromise when it comes to matters of the heart. She's a TEDx speaker, an author, a founder of something called Radically Aligned Life. She coaches those who are committed to actualizing their full potential in all areas of your life. And her work dissolves mental, emotional, and physical barriers that pull you out of alignment. And with your higher purpose, she helps you live it fully. So welcome to the Edge of Fulfillment, Deidre.
Thanks for having me. It's so great to be here with you today, Lorraine.
Oh, and I'm so happy that you're here as well, because I understand that your mission is to wake up as many people as possible to the truth of like who they are and who they're meant to be. And that's fascinating. I'd love to know, like, where would you like to start your story so people know more about you?
Yeah, I love to just bring us back to a moment in time about 7 years ago. I was sitting at my kitchen table and I was just casually putting my fingers through my hair like this. And at this point in my life, I had long hair down on my hips, and it was kind of my thing growing up. I grew up with 2 older brothers, so my long hair was like, part of my identity, And I was putting my fingers through my hair, and I noticed that something felt off. And right away, I thought to myself, oh, it must be that scar on the back of my head from when I fell when I was 5. Quickly, I realized, nope, that's not it. I grabbed my phone. I raced to the bathroom. I put it on camera mode, and I'm angling it at the back of my head, trying to figure out with the mirror what is going on the left top back corner of my head. And I quickly saw that, oh my gosh, I had a bald spot that was this big. It was huge. And I started breathing heavily. I was totally freaking out. I went back down to my kitchen table to sit down and just to ground for a moment. And that's when I heard this voice come out of me and say, if you don't listen to your soul, you're going to manifest cancer and die in a year. And I was just like, huh? What? And then moments after, I had this flashback to 5 years prior. The only other time I had ever heard this voice speak to me, I was wearing a wedding gown. I had pink roses in my hand. I was walking down the aisle to music. And this same voice said to me, this just isn't going to work. And for me, I didn't know what to do. From the outside looking in, I was doing all the right things. I thought I was in love. I thought that it was the right thing to do. So I just shoved it down and ignored it. And because no one taught me how to listen to my soul, no one taught me how to pay attention to what is in alignment and what is not in alignment. I thought I was doing the right thing. And so 5 years later, again, as I'm sitting at my kitchen table 7 years ago, I started to remember all these things within the time that I was in my relationship since I walked down the aisle. I manifested 4 different types of autoimmune disease that, the doctors couldn't help me with. I had chronic pain. I was depressed. I was exhausted all the time. And I felt like I was on a hamster wheel I just couldn't get off of. But the problem was, from the outside looking in, I had everything that everyone wanted. I was on TV. I was sponsored by big companies. Like, I looked like I was happy. I thought I was.
She has it all.
Yeah, she has it, right?
Except peace of mind.
Yeah. And, it's a tricky thing too, because I was so in it that I didn't know that I wasn't happy. And I think this is really common for people. And so as I was sitting at my kitchen table 7 years ago, having all these things come to the surface really quickly for me, I was like, oh my gosh, could it be that this entire time my soul has been trying to communicate to me, but I just haven't been listening? And in that moment, I knew that if I didn't change my life and really know how to listen to my soul and honor that I wouldn't be around for another year, especially because I was getting very sick in a short amount of time. And so I did. And now today, what I do is I help people understand and decode how their soul is communicating to them in many different ways, the language of the soul, so that they can step in radical alignment and live their purpose. And as a result of doing the work, 7 years ago, I started to listen and decode it. I was able to heal myself of all of those diseases that I mentioned: chronic pain that the doctors couldn't help me with, 4 autoimmune diseases, depression, chronic fatigue, and other things. And my hair, which I was told it was all going to fall out and I was going to have to continue to get shots in my hair. I was able to heal all that within 2 months from listening to the soul. So I really do believe a lot of what goes on in our body, from studying in the space of shamanic healing and all of that, is directly related to not living in alignment. So that's why I do the work that I do, because we all have a purpose. We're all here to make an impact. And when we understand the soul and we honor that on a micro level, small things every day, you don't have to get sick or have this big message or, do all of these things that aren't aligned. But if you're tuned in, you're able to live a really incredible life. And things happen really quickly. So that's what I'm all about.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that piece about, the voice inside said. And often my clients come to me and they kind of whisper, I kind of have voices in my head. And they think because of movies and that kind of thing that we're not supposed to. But right. The truth of the matter is, if you're a human being, you have voices in your head. Mm-hmm. I mean, these voices, these inner, like, we look in the mirror and we see ourselves as one reflection. And we're taught that that's one, like, we're one person, and we are one person, but we have many parts. Mm-hmm. And the different parts of us, I mean, there was a part of you that was very wise, obviously, and knew that what you were choosing was not the right path.
Yeah. And it comes from so much programming that when we're in it, we don't necessarily know that we're in it, because
like a fish in water.
You don't know that maybe you're in like a container that's this big, right? Yeah. And so our programming, just like a computer, if it's not updated, well, like computer issues, you have to update them on a regular basis. Because if you don't, they're not going to work when you need them to work. And so when things aren't working in our life, whether it's our relationship, our health, our business, or really anything, when we keep running into these walls or we're in these loops and these cycles, it's because some core programming hasn't been updated. And oftentimes we're in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s plus. and we're operating on programming from childhood. And of course, it's not going to work, but it's not something that we can see. It's not like a cut on our hand where we're like, oh, I have to put a Band-Aid on, or, oh, I'm physically sick, I need to rest. It's like, it's a frustration or a chaos that we manifest in our life. And it comes down to programming, belief systems, and things that are unseen. So I love this conversation.
Yeah, you and I are so aligned in terms of our, what we do and how we have been called to help. So how did you move from healing yourself to knowing what your calling was with others?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So at that time in my life, I was working in the space of wellness and personal development and healing already. I was already a facilitator in that space. So there was definitely some alignment there for sure. But I knew that there was something more. I knew that I had this vision. And I think a lot of people, we have this vision of something that we see ourselves doing, but sometimes the gap is really big and it's not. It's maybe incongruent with what we do now, or we don't know how to close that gap. So for me, around that time of my life, I was super excited about people who were making an impact in the world. I started a podcast that was called Human Unleashed. I was interviewing people who were doing a lot of impact work in the world. And I've always loved business. And they say you can learn a lot from someone based on your favorite TV show or movie. And for me, there's two main things that I absolutely love. So favorite movie, and I'd love to hear it from the listeners. My favorite movie is The Notebook. So I love. Like I love. And then I also loved the Shark Tank and Dragon's Den, which are business movies and or shows, right? And then I always love impact and being in the heart. So I started to kind of collect all this data, and I was working with impact-driven entrepreneurs. They really inspired me. I had the background in healing. I'd been studying with shamans for, over a decade, and it just started to kind of merge. And I realized too that so much of the personal development that I was in was telling me who to be and how to be, which was very much connected with this shame and this shaming, or how do I say it, like manipulative tactics to get you to be a certain way. And I never felt like I fit in. I never felt like I really was understood. I never really felt like it really clicked. So on my own journey of healing and discovering and noticing what lit me up in my gifts, I was like, I want to create something where people aren't boxed in. I want to create something where people can get their own answers within in an accelerated way, and then take that and use that for their impact in the world. Because I believe that our greatest traumas and our greatest pains are oftentimes the gateway to our greatest gifts for humanity if we have the courage to heal them. So it was very much a discovery of feels right, a lot of feedback from others. And then just one day being like, I'm a coach. I'm going to label myself a coach. Started my business as a coach. And of course, a lot of different modalities behind the scenes, but I'm here to help people discover and heal what's in the way, and then coach them to use that for their greatest impact. So it just kind of, we have these scattered clues. And so what are your movies? Why? What is it about it? What do you care about? What excites you? What are you naturally good at? All of those are signs, right? And everything that we're going through is going to support us with what we're here to do, like the skills that we're learning, no matter what we're doing as far as the container or the vehicle of work. So that's in a nutshell. I know that's quite a bit, but it was scattering of clues. And usually what I was most afraid to do was exactly what I was being called to step into.
That, now I'm sure that the listeners and the watchers are going, whoa, really? I mean, let's face it, we all love our comfort zones, don't we?
We do, right?
And some of us push gently against our comfort zones sometimes. And that's why I call the show Edge of Fulfillment, because I honestly believe that on a daily basis, most of us stand on the edge.
Yeah.
And it's, so let's explore a little bit about that, if you're willing to, about what that is like and how people can go about pushing a little bit harder on the edge of their comfort zone.
I love this. So perfect example. I would love to just share a little bit on intuition for a moment, because what I get a lot of feedback from people when we talk about the edge, like being at the edge of fulfillment, the edge of change, and or having this vision of what we want to step into, but being like, oh, like, who am I to do that? Or that doesn't make sense. And we kind of like push our visions and maybe what our intuition or higher self is trying to tell us. We're like, nope, I'm not ready. Now's not the time. I need to be this in order to step into that. So perfect example. This is probably about 5 years ago when I stepped fully into this business of what I do now. I decided, and I like put it out to the universe. I probably said it out loud. You know, I definitely talk to myself, and I definitely have voices in my head. So think what you want of me, but it's truth. And so
that makes you human.
Yeah, right? And so one day I was like, you know what? I want to be a professional speaker. I just had this vision of being a speaker, but it didn't make any sense to me. But one day I just claimed it. And at this point in my life, I was in a very mentally and emotionally abusive relationship where I felt this small. I didn't feel good about myself, and definitely going outside of my comfort zone. So the fact that I was like, you know what? I'm honoring this vision. It scares me, but I'm going to do it anyways. So I put it out energetically. Literally a day or two goes by, and I get a phone call from a friend who runs a big event company, and is like, Dee, are you free to talk on this day? And I didn't let this person know that I was wanting to speak. And I remember being on the phone, my hand was shaking like this, like no joke, like I'm not even over exaggerating. I was sweating, and every cell in my being was saying, no. I felt like my whole body was contracting. And I remembered that this is a vision I had. This is something I asked for. And so I said yes. And the event was like a few days later. It was like 4 days later. A speaker canceled or something happened, and he called me. And I said yes, because I knew that I needed to make some big changes in my life. It was roughly when I was about to go through a divorce, and a lot of change was happening. And I was like, you know what? I have to honor my soul. I have to listen. And so I said yes, despite my entire body saying no, because of that vision. So how we can start to take those steps to live on the edge of fulfillment and really live on the edge of whatever your next level of whatever it is that you want to create, whether it's love, impact, financial success, every area, connection, is understanding that when you feel a pull towards something, whether it's a person, there's something there for you. If you have a vision of yourself doing something, even if you don't understand it, it's your higher self, it's your intuition giving you the green flag to say, go all in on this thing. And as a result of me saying yes 5 years ago, and I was speaking with professional speakers who travel around the world, and then there's little D, like talking about, I don't even know what I talked about. It was a blur, in front of, a good amount of people. As a result of that, I did a TED Talk 3 years ago, or TEDx talk 3 years ago. And now I am a professional speaker, and it's just a normal part of my life. And so it's like the things that we think are so big and so like, oh my gosh, that's so scary. If you can just say yes and get rid of the, oh, I'm not ready, or someday, or tomorrow, or next year, or when this, then that, the imaginary rules that we create for ourselves. If you can just say yes, even if your whole body is saying no, and you show up for that, you rip off the Band-Aid, which is a big part of like what I do with my own life. And I challenge this with love. I challenge this with all areas of my life, which is uncomfortable. Well, what happens is you start to build the muscle of being uncomfortable, and all of a sudden your dreams turn into a reality. So it's like saying yes to the vision, and knowing that the contraction, the sweatiness, the awkwardness, the wanting to potentially throw up because you're so nervous is a part of it. And that's just excitement without breath. So if you breathe, all of a sudden it's going to turn into excitement, and all of a sudden you're going to rip off that Band-Aid, and then 5 years from now or a year from now, you're going to look back and you're like, I'm so proud of my past self. I'm so happy I did that thing. And that's really what it's all about.
Well, and if you're always feeling comfortable and you're always just floating along, I think that that's when you look back, when you reach, middle age or beyond, and you go, wow, I haven't I don't feel like I've done much. I don't feel like whereas I'm not saying like take massive risks all the time. And I don't think that's what you're advocating for people. I mean, I actually took a massive risk a few years ago and did something that I thought I would never do. And that is I did skydiving. But taking that risk and doing that, I mean, again, you put a pin in that, right? You put a pin in those times in your life when you actually go beyond the edge and see what's there for you. Like I was talking to a friend earlier, and she was pointing out, like, public speaking is very much statistically close to death as the number one fear.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And yet there's no physical risk when you're publicly speaking. And I think that piece of it for people is really critical, is to have an intuition, and then parts of you are going to go, not, no way, no how. And then other parts are just there to go, you know what, this is right.
Yeah.
Right. It seems right. I don't know how it's right, but do you want to talk a little bit more about intuition? Because I know that's such an important piece.
This is one of my favorite things to teach the people that I work with, because understanding your intuition, I really do believe, is probably the most important skill to have developed. Just in general, as a human, it's going to prevent you from having a lot of pain in your life, and it's going to lead you towards joy. And it's also, when you really trust your intuition, you don't need the outside world to tell you who to be, how to be, and naturally you live on the edge of fulfillment because you're saying yes to life. So this is like so important. So an example of something that you can do for intuition is just standing. This is a very like simple technique that you can do to start to practice and develop it. Is if you are like, so for example, a lot of people that, a question that I hear a lot: should I stay? Should I go? Whether it's a job, whether it's something in a business relationship, whether it's a, intimate relationship, should I stay or should I go? And what I'll do is I'll take people through a process to have their own clarity, and then they can take steps that they need to take. But it's really about what is going to bring you the most amount of joy. And you can just sit with it and just feel into both options, whatever it is for you. Should I go right? Should I go left? Should I have pizza tonight? Should I have a salad? And just you feel into your body, and your body is going to start giving you signs. And you can stand up and feet hip distance apart, and you can say, should I move to San Diego? And you just breathe. And if your body starts to sway forward naturally, like without you overthinking it, you're just focusing on your breath, that's a symbol of yes. If your body starts to go back, that's a sign that your energetic system, your body's saying no. If you stay completely in the center and you don't feel like affirmation, as though a wave of goosebumps or anything else, or this expansive feeling, it's like meh, it doesn't really matter if you do that. So swaying forward is a yes, back is a no, in the center and you're not getting any kind of affirmation is it doesn't really matter. Another thing you can do is you can ask yourself the question, whatever this is that I'm questioning about, is taking this action going to get me to where I want to go? Is it aligned with my values? Is it aligned with my vision? And if the answer is yes, it's usually typically a yes. Whereas if it's a no, then, there might be something off here with the choices that I'm making. But typically, if something makes you feel really contracted, it's your body saying no. But the difference between intuition and a trauma response are two different things. I teach on trauma. My TEDx was on a trauma, on trauma and educating on it. But when we experience a trauma, we get things locked into ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically. I'm sure you know all about this because of what you do, but for the purpose of the listeners.
Yeah.
Right?
Please go into detail, because
Okay.
as a trauma recovery coach, I may be aware, but I can always learn something new.
Okay.
We learn something new and different by listening to the words and the sounds that others make. So please
Totally.
continue.
Okay. So we have an image, a thought, a body sensation, an emotion, and then the energetics that get frozen in time from whatever experience that we've had from the past. So until we've completed those experiences, like healed them, have enough awareness around them, oftentimes we might act in fight or flight mode and have this false sense of, safety, like I'm not safe here, when really it comes back to a past trauma. And often our mind can get in the way based on our programming and say, you know what? Being on stage, I'm going to die like that. I feel like I'm going to die. Like it's not safe. And that's all, like, it's all relevant. I think it's really important to do the work on healing trauma and investigating past experiences, even just things that have happened in your life that, caused you some sort of pain, so that you have awareness around some of your core thoughts or patterns that are beneath the surface that could be impacting your the way that you show up. So typically how our intuition responds with us is the first feeling that we have about a person, an environment, or anything is usually the intuition saying yay or nay. And whatever that first feeling is, honor that, if I'm simplifying it. Then from there, what happens is our mind, our fear, our stuff comes up and we're like, no, 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 I can't do this. And fear takes over. Or maybe the opposite. You feel like no towards a person, but then they start checking all these things off of a list of what you're looking for in a business partner, but your initial feeling was no. Whatever the initial feeling is, as a baseline to start to develop your intuition, I would say honor that. And then also do some investigating work with, past experiences that you've had that could be either connected to your choice, which could also just be your intuition saying yay or nay based on your wisdom. But also it could be saying that based on what's happened from the past. But typically your first response to something right away is usually the accurate thing. And if you trust your instincts and you do the work on healing some of that trauma and you have awareness around your patterns, then you're able to show up more fully and have more self-trust and just say yes more to life. But also, if you're saying no to something, maybe it's a relationship. You really want to attract a relationship in your life right now. You want to call in that person, that life partner, whatever it is. And you're meeting all these great people that are aligned with your values, that you have fun with. But right when you're about to, have intimacy, or you're about to get closer, or it's, about to be a relationship, you're like, I can't do this. And then you get into fear and contraction. That's an opportunity for you to be like, okay, where do I not feel safe? Where is this coming from? What has happened in the past that's making this real in the now, where it might not actually be meeting up with reality? And that's a place to investigate, because oftentimes when we are wanting to attract the love of our life, or, go into new levels of, connection, success, impact, putting ourselves out there, our old stuff is going to come to the surface right before, we're basically, I don't want to say closing the deal, because I'm not talking about closing the deal, but right before we're about to receive what we want, we have these excuses. And I see people do it with money, with love, everything. So it's important to go back and do that healing, or at least have awareness, like, oh, I was really hurt in my last relationship. So now that I have someone who can actually meet me, I have all this terror and fear coming up that they're going to leave me. So I don't want to open my heart and trust them, because if I do, that could happen again. And just expressing that to someone is going to make you more connected. So there's so much opportunity for opening up and healing in those relationships.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying, because a lot of the work that I do as well is intergenerational trauma.
Amazing.
And some of the trauma that we carry around is not our own.
Totally. Yeah.
We live in it and we live with it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's passed along through DNA. Sometimes it's passed along through behavior, habits. Mom used to do this, grandma used to do this, I do this, without even thinking about it. Quite often it comes out in our we hear it in our things that we say in jest and that kind of thing. But what I'm hearing you say very clearly is that an awareness is critical. Like I often I hear the words of my mother, stop taking yourself so seriously. and that I didn't understand what she meant. I thought I was a joke. No, we're not saying that. What we're saying is give yourself a little space. Step back.
Right.
Be the observer of you for a little while. And then I think that intuition piece, I think we're talking the same language here, where you can connect with something bigger than yourself. You know?
Absolutely. And the thing is too, is one of the things that I talk about in my book of really like turning your light on is I have a chapter that's called Spiritually Aligned Chaos.
Oh, let's talk about that.
I was just like, this is like perfect time to talk about that specific chapter because it's so relevant. We're brought into this life to have really deep experiences, and that's deep experiences of joy, and oftentimes it's deep experiences of pain. And I believe that our greatest gifts come a lot of the time from our deepest pain. And you know, for myself, I'm such a connector and I'm very in tune with people, and I can see what's going on an emotional level. And I think that those gifts were brought through because I had a lot of trauma and I was so disconnected from my body that now I'm super connected to my body and what's going on with other people. So when we talk about spiritually aligned chaos, we're brought into this human form. This is what I believe. We're brought into this human form, and we have something called soul school. And it's all the lessons that we need to learn. And soul school is oftentimes challenging relationships. It's challenging experiences. Sometimes it's trauma. It can be a loss. It can be something really traumatic that's happened to you. And we go through this so that we can have all of these gifts to help us support other people to heal and maybe even to change something that's going on in the world. And so that's how I like to look at trauma and what's happened in the past. However, when we have these challenges in our life that keep occurring over and over and over again, maybe it's, you know, unhealthy relationships year after year after year, your entire life, you're dating the same person. Well, yeah, you could say it's spiritually aligned chaos, or you could say you are recreating the chaos that you never completed the lesson of, right? You haven't graduated that grade in that department. So spiritually aligned chaos, I like to think of chaos kind of like a tornado. And like if I'm watching a tornado, there's a couple things I can do. I can run, might be a good idea. Oh no, I've never been with a real tornado. I could try to control it. Well, we know that's not going to go very well because you don't want to mess with nature. Or you can observe it and you can just be with what's happening in front of you, and you can let the storm pass and see what's left over. The problem is so many of us are trying to control the storms, the chaos in our life, and we're trying to control, attach to it, and manipulate the situation. What happens in life when we do that in relationships? We try to change things that are potentially just wanting to pass through. We create a lot of pain. We create a lot of exhaustion. We can get sick. We can feel burnt out. We can manifest all these things that we don't want, and it can take ourselves away from the bigger picture. Whereas when you're the observer of the storm, the chaos, you can let the storm pass. You can breathe it all in, breathe it all out, and then see what's left when the dust settles, and see what's true, see what's not true, and then take action from there. So spiritually aligned chaos, the chapter is about understanding why certain things have happened in your life, because everything does, I believe, happen for some reason. Maybe it's a really hard lesson that you haven't been learning. Sometimes it's really uncomfortable pain that you've had, and maybe you're here to change something in the system in the world. I work a lot with impact-driven entrepreneurs who want to change the world. So that's a part of it. Or maybe you're trying to control things, and because of it, you're exhausted, you're repeating old patterns, and it's time to really look at those areas and those patterns and change them, because the storm is here to pass. We're not here to live in chaos, but chaos will happen to change something that's not working, to realign you and to push you in the right direction for where you're meant to be. And it's important to understand when it's time to let go, when it's time to observe, and where it is that you need to go, rather than consuming your energy in something that you don't need to be consuming your energy with.
I love that. And as I said at the top of the show, it's the book that everyone wishes they'd had 10 years ago, because you might have made different choices if you'd had it 10 years ago. And I think that's the one thing I think that is most important about turning your light on, and why I love that phrase, is because you don't want to get to the end of your life and look back and go, oh, I wish I had, or I could have had. Regret is the most distasteful of situations. And how do we avoid regret is by, grasping the chaos. I love that metaphor of let the storm pass and then see what's left. That's a beautiful metaphor. Because quite often we're in a case of the things that we can't control. So we either have to let it be, or we have to let it go. And there are pros and cons to both, and there are rewards and consequences to both. Being or letting things go. And the best part is that we're always at choice. One of the things that I love to say is that choice is freedom. People say, oh, I don't want to choose. I don't want to make a decision. But choice is freedom.
Yeah. And we're kind of always making a choice too.
Whether we're not making a choice, you're making a choice.
Yeah, right. I mean, the only, I don't even want to say I have regrets. Like, I don't really have regrets around my life. I've been doing my best wherever I've been. But I don't even want to say regret. The only area where I'm like, oh, you know what, Dee? You could have done better, is potentially leaving something that I stayed in too long, where I already knew it wasn't aligned. So it's like, the only currency that we can never get back is our time. And one of the things that is so important for our growth at whatever stage of life that we're in our fulfillment, is understanding when we're in the wrong environment. And I like to look at us as humans a lot like plants. You have a lot of plants behind you, and they need to be in a certain environment. And so for myself, there are certain environments that I thrive in. And before I stepped into, really claiming my life, really doing the healing work, really being on this path that I'm on now, which is very much about having my light on and supporting others to turn their light on and help others to do the same, is, I think it's so important to understand your environment, because before I made all these changes, I was in the wrong environments. I was around people who put me down all the time. I was around people who didn't understand my dreams. I was around people who wanted me not to grow. And I think that's, that's something that is really important to look at in life, is to look at the people that you surround yourself with, and to look at your environments. And if you feel contractive, if you feel, frustrated or angry all the time, or you feel like you can't be yourself, that's a sign that potentially you as a plant just need a different environment. And I think it's important to plug into shows like this show specifically, to find people who have similar ideas to you, that are on the same path as you, that want to make the same kind of changes as you, so that you can feel supported. Because in order to grow, it's so important to be in the right environments, to have the right support, and to be around the right people. Because I know for me, on a deep level, if I didn't change my life 7 years ago, I know for a fact I would have manifested cancer and I would have died. The amount of sickness and how horrible I felt on a day-to-day basis and the symptoms that was happening on my body, I know I wouldn't be here. And it's like our soul, our body, our how we feel, your energy, all of that is giving you signs all the time. And if you can lean more and intentionally put yourself in environments and around people where you feel lit up, where you feel seen, where you feel understood, those are the environments that are going to help you live a fulfilled life, so that at your end of your life, you're like, you don't even care. You're breathing in life, and then all of a sudden you're moving to the other side, whatever you believe in. Because if we have a fear of death, it's usually because we're not actually fully living. Right. So
I love that. And I would invite, and I'd love to hear your input on this, but I would invite people to stand in their lives at the moment and look around and see who's in your life. Just look at who you spend the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
And are they the people that you want to emulate? Because we are, or we become like the people we hang out with.
Absolutely.
And that's an exercise that I found very powerful a few times in my own life. Looking around going, oh my goodness, the people that I'm hanging around with, the people, even family, like people say, yes, but you can't pick your family. No, you can't pick your family, but you don't have to spend a lot of time with them if they are not moving in the direction or supportive or people that are reflecting who you want to be, you know. Same with friends. You know, friends come and friends go in your life, and sometimes friends reflect who you want to be and other times not so much. So it's an opportunity to do a bit of housekeeping, a bit of self-evaluation.
Yeah. And, you know, at the beginning, I think it's like, I'm all about, like, in my life today, if something's not working in a relationship or whatever, I'm so happy to just, you know, not end that relationship in a very dramatic way, but where I'm at now, it's so easy for me to just like release that relationship and move on. But at the beginning, it can be really hard. Yeah. Because we've been programmed in a way to be around people, our family, the people that we've surrounded ourselves with. The first step that I find super helpful is to find environments that make you feel good. Find people who have similar interests. Find potentially a therapist, a coach. You know, plug yourself into these environments on a continuous basis. And then from there, once you feel like you have more of like the stability and the connection, then, you know, potentially weaving some people out too, but also noticing how people respond to your growth and you becoming the person that you know that you're meant to be, you know. So continuously going and finding your people and plugging into that is going to energize you. And also the family members or the people that you feel like kind of have to be in your life, it's not going to bother you as much. You're going to be more confident, and whatever they say or do isn't going to stick as deeply. So find your people 100%.
Awesome. So we have about a minute left. How can people get a hold of you? How can they contact you?
Thank you. So my website is radicallyaligned.com. My email is hello@radicallyaligned.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. It's just my first and last name, Deidre Sirianni. I would love to connect with you. And I have an incredible book that's called Turn Your Light On. And we go deep into all of the work that we've been discussing today. And it really is the personal development book that you wish you had 10 years ago. So if you're already into this space and you're looking for radical change this year, you want to play a bigger game, you want to be more fulfilled, this is the book for you. And thanks so much for having me.
Oh, and thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and ideas and bringing all of that to our listeners and helping them to turn their light on, because it is so important. And I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to be here today, Deidre. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Yeah. So if you'd like to join other like-minded people like us, there is a Facebook group that you are more than welcome to join. It's called Mindfully Moving Forward. And I am your host, Lorraine Lapointe of Head, heart synergy, reminding you that at the edge of fulfillment, there is always a choice. You can stay on the edge, always getting what you've already got, or you can become just a little bit courageous, a little bit more aware, self-aware, and move beyond the edge to get what you really want. And we'll see you next week.